The morning my son told me I was going to a short-term care center, I was standing in my own kitchen, making coffee the way I had made it for 41 years. 2 scoops, not 3, and always with the window cracked so the smell filled the whole back of the house. I remember thinking his voice sounded too rehearsed, like he had practiced it in the car on the way over. I am 79 years old. I have buried a husband, raised 2 children, managed my own finances since 1987, and never once missed a property tax payment. I know what a rehearsed voice sounds like. He said it was just for a few weeks. He said my doctor had mentioned some concerns, which was a lie I would confirm later, in writing, from the doctor herself. He said the house needed some repairs that weren't safe for me to be around. He said a lot of things that morning, standing in my kitchen that smelled like coffee and October air, and I listened to all of them because he was my son, and I still believed, in that moment, that I had raised someone who loved me. I should have called my attorney right then. I know that now. I should have picked up the phone before I ever agreed to pack a single bag. But I didn't. And that is the part of this story I have had to make peace with. The part where I trusted him. His name is not important. What matters is what he did and what I did about it. The facility was called Meadow Crest. It sounded like a subdivision, and it looked like one too. Beige walls, carpet the color of old mustard, a front desk staffed by a young woman who smiled at everyone with the same practice brightness. My son carried my bag in. He spoke to the administrator in a low voice while I stood beside the window, looking at a parking lot and wondering why there were no flowers anywhere. Places like that always have flowers in the brochures. In real life, they have parking lots. I was shown to a room on the 2nd floor. Twin bed, one window facing a brick wall, a small dresser with a mirror that hung slightly crooked. My roommate, a woman in her mid-80s named Vera, though she mostly slept, had arranged photographs along her windowsill like a little procession. Grandchildren, I assumed. A golden retriever, a man in a fishing hat who was probably her husband. I sat on the edge of my bed and waited for my son to come back and explain the paperwork. He came back, but he did not explain anything. He set a folder on the dresser and said the staff would go over everything with me. He said he would visit on Sunday. He kissed my cheek the way you kiss someone you are already moving away from, and then he was gone. I opened the folder. There were pages I did not recognize. An admission form with my signature, or something meant to look like it, on the bottom line. A medical evaluation that listed cognitive concerns I had never discussed with anyone. A document that referenced a power of attorney I had not signed, assigning authority over my financial and medical decisions to my son. I sat there for a long time. Outside in the hallway, I could hear a cart being wheeled along the floor, and someone's television playing a game show at low volume, and the distant sound of a door closing. I sat with that folder in my hands and I thought about my house. My house, the one I had lived in for 34 years, the one my husband and I had chosen together on a rainy Tuesday in March, because the kitchen had good light and the backyard had an old apple tree. I thought about the fact that my son had keys, that he knew where I kept my documents, that he had seemed, over the past several months, unusually interested in the property assessment. I thought about all of it, and then I put the folder in my lap and I made a decision. I was not going to wait for Sunday. The first thing I needed was a phone. They had taken mine at check-in. Standard procedure, the woman at the desk had said, for orientation. I had not thought to question it at the time. I was questioning it now. My roommate was asleep. The hallway was quiet in the way that institutions get quiet in the late afternoon. Not peaceful, just emptied out. I freshened up, put on my good cardigan, and walked downstairs like I had every right to be walking downstairs, because I did. The young woman at the front desk, her name tag said Amber, was typing something and eating a granola bar at the same time. I stood at the counter and waited until she looked up. I need to make a phone call, I said. My cell phone is being held somewhere, and I need to reach my attorney. She blinked. Your attorney? Yes. I have his number memorized. I had kept that number in my head for 11 years, ever since my friend Ruth Ann told me that you should always know your attorney's number the way you know your social security number. Ruth Ann was a very practical woman. I have thought about her often since that afternoon. Amber looked uncertain in the way that young people look uncertain when they have not been trained for a situation. She glanced toward the administrator's office, which was closed, and then back at me. I can't, she started. I am not a patient, I said, calmly. The way I used to speak to students who were trying to negotiate their way out of a deadline. I am a resident here under circumstances I am currently disputing. I have not been declared incompetent. I have not been court-ordered into this facility. I arrived voluntarily, which means I have the right to make a phone call to a legal representative. And I would like to do that now, please. There was a pause. She looked at the phone on the desk, a landline, the old corded kind, and then back at me. Just, quickly, she said. And she turned slightly away, which I understood to mean she was choosing not to see. I dialed. He picked up on the third ring. It's me, I said. I need you to listen carefully because I don't have much time. His name was Theodore Marsh, and he had been my attorney for over a decade. He was methodical and unhurried, and had a habit of asking 3 questions when most people would ask 1. I had always appreciated that about him. I told him where I was. I told him about the folder. I told him about the signature that was not my signature and the power of attorney I had not signed, and the fact that my son had been asking questions about the house for months. He did not interrupt. When I finished, there was a brief silence. Don't touch the folder, he said. Don't let anyone remove it from the room. I'm going to make some calls this afternoon, and I'll have someone there tomorrow morning. He's coming Sunday, I said. I'll be there Saturday, he said. Is there anything else you need tonight? I thought about it. I'd like my phone back. He almost laughed. I'll see what I can do about that too. I thanked Amber when I hung up. I meant it sincerely. She gave me a small nod and went back to her granola bar, and I walked back upstairs and sat with the folder in my lap and felt, for the first time since that morning in my kitchen, like myself again. That night I could not sleep. Vera woke up around 10, and we talked for a while in the dark. She asked me what had brought me in, and I told her in broad terms that my family had made a decision I hadn't agreed to. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Mine too, honey. Mine too." I asked her if she had anyone. She said her daughter came sometimes, but that it was a long drive. I asked if she had an attorney, and she said she'd never really thought she needed one. I thought about what Theodore had said, that he would make calls. I thought about how many women like Vera might be in this building right now. Women who had not memorized a phone number, who had not had a Ruth Ann in their lives, who were waiting for a Sunday visit from someone who may or may not come. I didn't sleep much, but I kept the folder safe. Theodore arrived Saturday morning with a woman he introduced as his associate, a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s named. She gave me only her last name, Pryor. They sat with me in the common room, and Theodore spread the documents on the table between us. The power of attorney was a forgery, not a sophisticated one. Theodore said he had seen better, which I found both reassuring and disturbing. The signature on the admission forms had been traced from a document I had signed 2 years earlier, a real estate assessment that my son had asked me to sign for what he said were insurance purposes. The medical evaluation had been submitted by a physician I had never met, whose license, Theodore told me quietly, was flagged for 2 prior complaints. My son had been busy. Miss Pryor left to speak with the administrator. Theodore sat with me and explained what would happen next in the careful 3 questions way he had. A court filing that afternoon to challenge the power of attorney. A call to Adult Protective Services. A request to the facility for my immediate voluntary discharge, which they could not legally deny given the absence of any valid court order. He'll find out today, I said. Yes, Theodore said. He will. What will he say? Theodore folded his hands. In my experience, people in his situation say it was a misunderstanding, that they were trying to help, that things got out of hand. I looked out the common room window at the parking lot. An orderly was pushing a wheelchair along the path outside. Somewhere down the hall, a television was on again. Things didn't get out of hand, I said. He planned this. Yes, Theodore said. I know. I was home by Saturday evening. The apple tree in the backyard was still there. The kitchen still had good light. My coffee maker was on the counter where I had left it, and the window was still cracked the way I like it in October. I stood in the middle of my kitchen for a long time before I did anything else. I just stood there and let the smell of the house settle around me. My son called 4 times that evening. I did not answer. He came to the door the following morning, Sunday as he had promised, though I suspect the timing was not coincidental. I watched through the window as he stood on the porch. He knocked 3 times. He looked from where I was standing, like someone who had rehearsed what he was going to say and was now unsure whether the script would still work. It wouldn't. That part was over. I did not open the door. What followed took several months. I will not walk through every detail because some of it was exhausting, and some of it was painful in ways I was not expecting. Not because I was surprised by what my son had done, but because there is a particular grief in watching someone you raised make choices that require you to protect yourself from them. I had known, somewhere for a long time. I think I had been not knowing it on purpose. The forged power of attorney was challenged and voided. The physician who had submitted the fabricated evaluation surrendered his license the following spring. My son was charged, not with a misdemeanor, not with something that would result in a class and a fine, but with elder financial abuse and fraud, which in this state carry consequences that are real and lasting. His attorney tried the misunderstanding argument. The judge was not moved. I kept the house. I also did something I had not expected to do. I called Vera's daughter. I had asked one of the staff members for her contact information before I left. Under the circumstances, they were cooperative. And I told her daughter, as plainly as I could, what I had seen, what I had heard in the dark, what Vera had said about the long drive. I told her that her mother was lucid and lonely and deserved someone to look into her situation. I don't know everything that happened after that. But Vera's daughter called me 3 weeks later to say thank you, and her voice was the kind of voice that tells you something has changed. Here is what I want to say to you, if you are listening. I am 79 years old. I have a good attorney's number memorized. I know where my original documents are. I have a neighbor, my friend Ruth Ann's cousin, as it happens, who has a key to my house and my permission to act if something seems wrong. These are not the preparations of a paranoid woman. They are the preparations of a woman who paid attention. Know your attorney's number. Not just in your phone, in your head. Keep your original documents somewhere your children do not have access to. Tell someone you trust what your wishes are. In writing, witnessed, notarized. Not because your family will betray you, but because if they do, you will already be ready. I stood in my kitchen this morning and made my coffee. 2 scoops. Window cracked. The apple tree is still out back, dropping the last of October's fruit onto the grass. No one is selling this house but me. And I'm not going anywhere.